for the next presenter on today's event. I'm excited to introduce Mike Kaponen, who's a Senior Director of Solutions Marketing, and Keith Hagman, who is a Senior Technical Marketing Engineer at Pivot3. Mike and Keith, are you with me?
Yes.
We are indeed, David. Keith, are you out there as well?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Well, great, David. Thanks for the introduction. And Keith and I are going to talk a bit about Pivot3's hyperconverged offering today. And we're not going to take an attempt to do an end-to-end presentation. It's tough to do that in the amount of time allotted here. So my goal is to take and give you just enough of a broad overview, but then drill down on a couple of specific areas that we believe provide a lot of value to you in terms of building out your infrastructure with a hyperconverged solution. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Pivot3, Pivot3 is a hyperconverged infrastructure vendor that's been shipping hyperconverged solutions since around 2008. So we were at the very forefront of the wave of hyperconverged infrastructure solutions as that technology started to come about and mature. We have systems installed all throughout the world, and we are recognized by Gartner, Forrester, and then IHS is a video surveillance and security analyst, and I'll mention why they're listed there in a moment. So we're recognized by all three of those top analyst firms as being in the top tier of hyperconverged infrastructure providers. And why I list IHS there, and you see it referred to in the title of this slide too, with the modernizing hybrid cloud, meaning data center environments, and then IoT infrastructures. I mention that because Pivot3 has a long history providing hyperconverged infrastructure solutions, not just for data center-oriented use cases, but also the video surveillance and security arena. We have systems installed all throughout the world that are ingesting and storing video across a wide variety of use cases that I'll refer to at the end of this presentation. So we are unique from the other hyperconverged infrastructure vendors that you'll hear from, in that we have solutions optimized for both data center-oriented use cases and then solutions optimized for the video surveillance and security use cases. And we do see more and more IT infrastructure professionals not only needing to support application workloads that are supporting the traditional data center functions, but also starting to assume responsibility for the physical security aspects of their companies, just because of the amount of storage, network bandwidth, and other sophisticated applications that are starting to get employed there, such as analytics. So kind of make a note of that in the back of your head, that we do provide solutions optimized in both of those areas. From a Pivot3 intellectual property standpoint and differentiation standpoint, we're recognized by the analyst as having a lot of differentiation in software-defined storage. We were one of the first companies to develop a software-defined storage platform, and as I'm sure you've heard from the hyperconverged vendors on this Ecocast, that's at the core of what a hyperconverged infrastructure solution is. It's all about software-defined storage. So our hyperconverged infrastructure software platform has at its core essentially an iSCSI block storage system, operating system that looks and behaves just like an iSCSI block storage device. We have a lot of innovation in a efficient and high-performance scheme for doing data protection. That's our own patent implementation of erasure coding that we've been doing since day one. I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation. And then what we're going to take and really focus a lot on today is our policy-based intelligence engine that is targeted at simplifying management of your hyperconverged infrastructure environment. So I'll kind of save that for a bit later. And then our hyperconverged infrastructure nodes are based upon a distributed multi-tier architecture that from day one, the software platform was designed to take advantage of first PCIe flash, and as it evolved into NVMe, be able to take advantage of NVMe. So we do have a lot of great areas of intellectual property that winds up playing into benefits for you as you deploy hyperconverged infrastructure solutions. I know there's been multiple vendors on this Ecocast talking about hyperconverged infrastructure in terms of what it is, and so I'm not going to take and go into that, but I do like pointing out a couple of things related to it. You see the stat here from Gartner. Hyperconverged infrastructure is one of the strongest growth categories of technology being deployed in data centers. It's a forecast to take and grow at a 48% compound annual growth rate over that 2016 to 21 time frame. But even the more interesting part of that that Gartner has pointed out is by that time frame, over 50% of the storage that's deployed in enterprises will be deployed on some type of software-defined or hyperconverged infrastructure solution. So that more than 50% really, to me, speaks to a popular way for enterprises to take and build out infrastructure to support their various applications. So this is a good spot to stop and do a little audience interaction. David, do you want to tee up this poll for me here?
Absolutely, yeah. So the poll question that's on your screen right there in the slide area says, what was or will be your most important HCI selection criteria? And choose your top 3 most important criteria. And I'm very interested to see the results of this poll. I know it might be hard to choose 3. I think if I were still an IT manager, I would want to select every box on there. But try to choose just your top 3. So I'll give you a minute to answer that poll question. I see some responses are coming in already. I was going to ask you to make a prediction, Mike, but I think you can see what the responses are before we post them. So
it's kind of like watching the Kentucky Derby unfold as the horses come around the track. Who's in the lead, who's catching up.
That's right. That's right. All right. Looks like most of the audience has voted out there. I appreciate those votes. I'm going to go ahead and share the results of the poll. All right, looks like the winner here was performance at 25%, followed by efficiency of storage utilization, 14%. Oh, actually, followed by resilience, high availability at 15%, and then efficiency of storage utilization. What do you think, Mike?
Well, that's great. First off, thanks everybody for taking the poll. And it's interesting. I've done this survey multiple times now on previous Ecocasts that we've done with our friends at Actual Tech Media, and the results have turned out fairly consistent every time, with performance top on the list, efficiency, resiliency being neck and neck on number 2, and then we continue to see more and more quality of service popping up high on the list as well, and then scalability. So yeah, very consistent with what I would expect to see, and I almost feel like it's a little bit of a setup for what I'm about to talk about next, because in all of our discussions with prospective customers and our installed customers, we hear them talking about those type of things consistently. And I talked about just how popular hyperconverged infrastructure is becoming for your peers to take and deploy in their data centers. And in talking to them, early on, companies deployed hyperconverged infrastructure to predominantly support some targeted or siloed workloads, virtual desktop infrastructures, maybe a particular siloed database environment, business intelligence analytics, et cetera. And as companies got a taste for what the benefits were of hyperconverged in terms of simplifying operations by reducing costs, making management easier and such, and reducing the complexity, from managing separate, SAN, storage networking and such. They said, hey, this is working out great, but what I'd like to do now is I'd like to be able to consolidate, more of my multiple mixed application workloads on hyperconverged, including those ones that I deem mission critical and that may be, very, latency and performance sensitive. And then as we talk to companies, looking at, making that migration from legacy infrastructure to hyperconverged, the type of questions we get are the ones you see listed there, and they kind of line up very well to survey results there. We see IT infrastructure professionals wanting to know, number one, is it going to perform, for my applications? Number two, how can I ensure that I can confidently deploy multiple mixed application workloads on hyperconverged, because I want to reduce my infrastructure costs by consolidating more and more. Is it going to be efficient? Can I predictably scale it? And will it have all the sorts of data services and management tools that I'm used to having in my SAN environment? So we get these type of questions from people that we're talking to about hyperconverged, and I'm happy to say that we can work with people and check the boxes in all these cases. And that kind of leads into, how do we position, what Pivot 3 Hyperconverged can do for you? We've put a lot of engineering effort, over the years, into ensuring that we can deliver the performance that your mission-critical applications require, and that you've got sufficient performance to support multiple mixed application workloads, and we do that, through having the ability to take and aggregate resources, from all the nodes in the hyperconverged cluster, if you will, into one, giant pool of resources that all the VMs, regardless of what node they reside on, get the benefit of. We ensure flexible and predictable scalability. You can scale by adding hyperconverged nodes that add storage to the pool, as well as can host VMs, compute-only nodes, GPU-optimized nodes. We have a version of our software that actually runs up in the cloud, so we take and enable cloud connectivity for backup, DR, workload mobility purposes. And then from a resilience standpoint, from day one, we've used this patented implementation of erasure coding that can provide greater than 80% storage utilization, and that's before you do things like compression to it. Then when you do indeed suffer failures, it's able to take and retain over 85% of its normal performance, even when it's running in those degraded modes. So we put a lot of effort into ensuring that we can deliver a high performance, scalable, resilient environment. But the thing that we've also put a lot of effort into from an engineering standpoint to make your life easier, from a system administration standpoint, is simplifying the management, with the objective of making it easier for you to deploy multiple mixed application workloads on this hyperconverged infrastructure, and ensure that your applications are going to get the performance, the response time, the security, and the availability that particular application requires. And that's what we're going to focus a little bit on here now is that intelligence engine. And it's not just Pivot 3. Over the years, talking to customers and hearing them talk about the need to simplify management. On the slide here, you see some quotes from Gartner from 3 different reports that they published over the last year, that speaks to the need to have more intelligence, in hyperconverged to take and help organizations, simplify management complexity, particularly when you're trying to deploy multiple mixed application workloads on the hyperconverged infrastructure, and take and manage different solutions that you may have deployed across edge to core to cloud. So let's take and talk a little bit about what we refer to as the Pivot 3 intelligence engine. So this intelligence engine has capabilities built into it to help you manage performance, data protection, security. The monitoring and analytics refers to all sorts of predictive or all sorts of information that we collect on system performance and health, so that we can do predictive analytics on sensing when there may be failures or when things may be suboptimized, from a performance standpoint. And then I mentioned earlier, that our architecture is based upon a multi-tier architecture, that has different storage media types in it: hard drives, SSDs, RAM, NVMe, PCIe flash. And so this intelligence engine, knows how to take advantage of those multiple tiers of media types to ensure that your performance SLAs are met. And this intelligence engine is all based upon the concept of policy-based management, simplifying things for you. So all you have to do is take and pick from predefined performance or data protection or security policies, or in some cases a library of performance policies that you define, and then you apply that to your volumes, data stores, or VMs, based upon the unique SLA needs of that application. And so essentially what you're telling the system is what the SLA profiler needs are of that particular application, and now the system knows what applications are more important than others. So if there are periods of resource contention, it will prioritize resources to what you deem to be the more mission-critical applications. And instead of kind of walking through the next couple of slides that show you how this works in a slide sort of format, I'm going to turn it over to Keith now, and Keith's going to do a short demonstration for you, to show you how this policy-based management paradigm works and how that's applied to performance and security in particular. So Keith, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
You want to blow up your console there a little bit if you can?
All righty. So in the product, as Mike has already said, we have the intelligence engine built into the product that will manage in near real time the consolidated workloads and be able to deliver. Product has 5 built-in policies. The first is mission critical. As you can see here on the screen, I have 16 volumes, and the target performance of that policy, mission critical, is 1 millisecond of latency and 125,000 IOPS with a gigabyte of throughput. And then the read ahead and read warming settings that are listed in this. Our other products in the surveillance realm have different settings that are optimized for customer workloads based on the kind of product and the workloads that you're deploying here. Second policy here is business critical, as is policy 3. It has 2 volumes that have a targeted latency of 3 milliseconds and IOPS at 75,000 with a half a gigabyte of throughput. Policy 3, of course, has you can see the screen. Policies 4 and 5 are non-critical, and there are 2 volumes at policy 5. And so as the system comes under more and more workload, and the QoS engine automatically starts enforcing these metrics, it'll be the non-critical volumes down here that will be at managed at a latency of 40 milliseconds and 10,000 IOPS and policies.
And Keith, if I could just interject here too, Keith used the term, targets for that latency, IOPS, and throughput. Think of the IOPS and throughput as floors, and so the system's going to take and manage your resources under the covers to take and ensure that those volumes, data source VMs, don't drop below that IOPS and throughput floor, and that latency is a not to exceed target. So in reality, what the application is experiencing is, like in that mission critical, is less than a millisecond, but what we're saying is we're guaranteeing that what you've designated as mission critical applications won't exceed that 1 millisecond latency target. So just a little bit of additional color on that.
Outstanding. Yeah. This is the managed performance that lets you, as the DevOps staff, you can put your mission critical workloads on here and know that the settings and the workloads that are running at the non-mission critical or other policies will be managed appropriately. For the DevOps staff, today we're going to show how simple it is in the product to just go and add a volume and set all of these performance policies. So you would give, this is the create volume wizard that the IT staff would use. They'd select a policy here, a protection policy, and they'd give it a size of 20, and policy 5 is easily set. You move forward in the second step, and our encryption, when enabled in the product, is automatically all volumes created after initial setup of the key control server will enable encryption by default. It will generate new keys every time you go out there. Of course, if you also want to create a data store and mount that in the details, you can give that a name. And then, of course, move forward and confirm this. So this volume that I would create here, this is a long-running operation, so I actually won't complete this. It's a volume name on this particular storage pool. We call those a VPG. It would be at policy 5, and we've enabled the protection policies, the daily snapshots with encryption, and the information about the key controller and the volume name. And
So Keith, gosh, when looking at this, in like 3 clicks, you've assigned a performance policy to that volume that set a IOPS and a throughput floor and a not to exceed latency target that now the system, automatically under the covers is going to manage. You've also assigned a data protection policy that specifies snapshot, frequency, retention policies, all those things, and then you've also elected to do data at rest encryption, on that volume. So all in 3 simple clicks, and now, you've told the system, how you want that volume, managed going forward, and so it's really that simple. 3 clicks. That's pretty neat.
Yep, and more importantly, the staff can't miss, or they might select something wrong, but you can't skip something and not encrypt something. You can proactively go in and not encrypt something, but there's a warning and a pop-up in the system. So Keith,
maybe show us.
It's very, very simple.
Yep, maybe show us one other thing, because I know we get the question a lot of, well, can I change those policies in real time? Maybe I assigned it performance policy 5 to start with, but gosh, in looking at the performance metrics and such, somebody's determined that, boy, I really need to move that up from a performance target standpoint. How easy is it to do that, and how does the system respond when you take and make a performance policy change?
Great setup. So it's a simple real-time operation for all of your production Tier 1 data. I've selected this iSCSI 1 volume down here. You click on the volume you want to change, bring up the Modify wizard. You simply change the policy in real time. It's a click. Or this can also be a scheduled event. We have a industry-leading scheduling capability in the system. So If you want this change to happen regularly, you would set up an automated schedule, and that could change policies around performance over protection as you go. So you would click this change from policy 1 to policy 3, simply click the next button. That drives you, and you don't want to happen to make a change on this screen, so you confirm that and then move forward. And it's that simple. We believe all these features can be used for your production Tier 1 data, and all the features in the system. That's how fast it's taken to change that volume performance from policy 1 to policy 3. I think I got to here, Mike.
Okay. Well, good. I know we're running short on time. Keith actually has a demonstration of something else set up, but I think we don't have time for it. In that Keith, can show you that the effects of that policy change from how the data path is managed in the system basically happens real time. So it isn't that you have to wait, hours or a half a day or something for the system now to start treating the data associated with that volume differently from the standpoint of what resources it uses. That change takes effect in pretty much real time. And then there's also the ability to take and schedule those policy changes. So if you know that at Friday at 6 p.m., some particular application reporting is going to kick in, and you want to provide more performance resources in a guaranteed fashion to the volumes associated with those applications, you can schedule a policy change to go into effect at a certain time and then change it back at a later point in time. So there's a lot of powerful capabilities in this policy-based management engine that really simplifies ensuring that the right workloads deliver the right performance, data protection, and security. So I'm going to take and skip through these slides because Keith essentially demonstrated that. And what I'll sort of touch on here briefly is this flexible scalability capability. And so if you can take and optimize your hyperconverged configuration based upon the exact amount of compute, storage, GPU resources you need, because we do have the ability to take and have nodes that are true hyperconverged nodes. You can run VMs on them, as well as they have storage in them to contribute to the overall pool. You can add storage-only nodes, and then you can add GPU-enabled nodes so that you can scale the solution based upon the exact amount of compute, storage, and GPU your application environment needs. Then we've talked a bit about technology, but what we're trying to take and deliver you as IT professionals is lower your total cost of ownership by the amount of performance that we can provide, allowing you to take and have higher application density, whether those are database VMs, Splunk VMs, or let's say virtual desktops. We've got a lot of performance comparisons that show that we can drive much higher application density per node on our system, and so buy less hardware, buy less software licenses to get the job done. What Keith showed you in terms of this intelligence engines, geared to take and ensure that you can deliver more predictable performance, for your applications based upon their individual SLA requirements, and in particular, make sure your most mission critical ones are guaranteed access to resources. That simple policy-based management approach that we deliver, allows you to take and lower your operating expenses, and then ensuring that you're delivering those mission critical apps, in particular, the right performance levels, is going to result in just more satisfied customers and more productive end users within your organization. So those are the business outcomes all this great technology is intended to take and drive for you. And from a solution standpoint, our customers are deploying hyperconverged infrastructure across these type of application environments. And then I'll just close with reinforcing the fact that we do indeed have solutions that are optimized for video surveillance and security use cases, and that's been a hallmark of Pivot 3 for a long time now. And with that, we'll close. I know we've run a few minutes over here. I apologize for that, David. Do we have any questions that we can quickly take?
Let's see. I don't think there's any questions in the queue right now, it looks like. I think you covered everything. Really great presentation, Mike and Keith. If people wanted to get started, let me just ask this. If they wanted to get started with Pivot 3, what's the first step that they typically take, or what do you recommend?
Well, what I recommend is sitting down, with one of our solution architects or one of our authorized resellers, and just talking about what your specific needs are. What's your current environment look like? What are the sort of applications you've got? What's your storage growth? All those sorts of things, and then we can take and propose a particular solution for you. Based upon your particular needs, and that may include kind of walking you through a more detailed demo and just kind of describing some of what I just briefly touched on today in a lot more detail, so you understand what we do.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think that's all we have for now. I really appreciate the presentation and the live demo from Keith. That was really helpful to see the product in action. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Keith.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.